Hey, how's it going? It's Keith Townsend from the CTOadvisor.com with another CTO dose. We're actually in Las Vegas. I know you can't tell by this angle, but maybe you can tell by the weird wallpaper that you get in these funky Las Vegas hotel suites. We're at the Cosmopolitan, and I'm joined with Chris Williams of Greenpages Technologies. You're a cloud architect there.
Yes, I am.
So, first off, what is Greenpages?
Greenpages is traditionally we were a VAR, a value-added reseller, but now we've also gotten into the professional services consulting realm, and we're also a CSP. So a lot of what I do is the architecture and the professional services deploy side of it, and then that dovetails in with the CSP. So I build it, and then our CSP takes care of it.
So, cloud, we're at AWS reInvent, you're CSP. Help me understand the relationship of AWS, because wasn't AWS supposed to like put all of the independent CSP types and MSPs out of business? You know, we're going to outsource to the cloud, and AWS is going to just take care of everything for us. Wasn't that the dream a few years back?
Maybe. I don't know. I can tell you that things are going very well for us in regards to that. Every environment still needs care, feeding, and maintenance.
Right.
AWS is not in the role of doing non-automated care, feeding, and maintenance. They're good at automation pieces. They're really good at provisioning and deploying and standing up things very, very quickly. In terms of the day two operations and the long-term stuff that are very bespoke to each individual customer, that is a area where we shine.
So, Chris, you've participated in the community for years. You've helped out with the Brown Bag. You blog. What are you seeing, like the intersection of, because you're in this weird realm where you have kind of one foot in the VMware,
yep,
vSphere community, you know, vMug, rah,
yep,
and then you're full head on in the AWS community as well. What are you seeing kind of as these two communities and disciplines merge?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I've on one side I've got vBrownBag and vTug. Hi, Al. And on the other hand, I also help to run the AWS Portsmouth user group. Hey, other guys. and so the two different user groups that we're servicing and that we're working with are. They're very different,
right?
And yet we've got to get them to come together in that magical unicorn of DevOps kind of role, because with vTug and the vBrownBag stuff, more the vTug, it's the VMware guys, it's the provisioning and infrastructure people and the operational day-to-day stuff, and in the AWS user groups. And again, also with the vBrownBag, because that's kind of a hybrid. It's a lot of developers, a lot of DevOps coming from the developer side of things, and so there's different needs, but both sides of it kind of understand the need to come together and figure out what the other person is doing, with that, you know, that two pizza team terminology,
right,
and you know, agile DevOps and SecOps kind of stuff.
So, from a crossover perspective, not even crossover perspective, but I guess there's this, you know, Venn diagram where you have the code jockeys on one side,
yep,
the guys, yep, who just want to, you know, my son is a great example of that. He went to VMworld a couple of years ago, did the first hackathon, and he was
nice,
like, "What kind of hackathon is this? I have to provision firewalls." I'm like, I'm not used to this concept.
Exactly.
So you know that was kind of the code jockeys head on into the ops guys.
Yep.
Where do you see the community kind of coalescing to now? As I think we're a couple of years into this VMware embracing AWS and the VMware community as an extension embracing AWS. Where are you seeing kind of the settling points where the traditional infrastructure guys understand their role versus code jockeys and DevOps guys understanding their roles? Yep. Or has that not happened yet?
It's happening, and this is going to sound very trite, but it's all about communication. They are still in their own camps per se, but they are understanding the need to, instead of throwing the issue over the fence, to work together, to get and also to gain some skill sets in the other side. So with vBrownBag in the near future, we're going to set up a series on how to learn Python, and so we're talking to developers right now about how to get a learning track going, but gear it towards operational people that already have a good IT skill set, but that need that extra boost of, okay, now this is how you read code, this is how you understand and smell code, and figure it out. And conversely, we're going to then, in the future, look towards how do we get an infrastructure track but gear it towards developers? How do we teach the opposite side of that? And that is the magic sauce that I don't think anybody has really sussed out.
So that part, when you were talking about infrastructure folks learning code, that kind of, I was with you. I'm thinking, I've been meaning to pick up a Python book for the past 2 years. I can see the value in learning code.
Yes.
But then when I go the other way around, and I say, developers learning infrastructure, which is absolutely good, I think through kind of it seems like there's a higher barrier of learning infrastructure than it is for infrastructure guys to learn code. Because we don't have to learn that much code, infrastructure folks. I don't know. Let's give a good example of this. You gave me a good example last night when I ran into you downstairs in the lounge. You wrote this script to do what?
So we have a customer, and what they're doing is they're provisioning their software solution as a SaaS offering. So I wrote a CFT, a CloudFormation template, that basically stands up an entire environment with a dev stack, a UAT stack, and a load balanced multi-AZ production stack with backend databases, front-end load balanced environment, and VPN connectors and VPC to VPC pairing connectors for attachments into customer environments and administrative environments. So I built that, I wrote that out, and now their operational people and their development people are taking that script, that CFT, laying down a foundation per customer, and then both the ops people and the dev people go in and manipulate their pieces of it. And then eventually the goal is to then have them modify the CFT and have the CFT automate all of those processes. So the ops people need to know the code to make the automation, and the developers need to know, okay, if I make this change, how does that affect the environment?
And then from an ops perspective, how much time are you saving ops people? So beyond the obvious, I create a repeatable process that every time I need to do this, there's a consistent platform that reduces the cost of support, etc. But from a practical perspective, how much time are you saving that customer and that ops team who wouldn't need to go in and recreate and manually do these processes and steps over and over again?
Well, so for this particular customer, the initial environment provisioning piece, and that's from the time that they're signed off and the time that it stood up, it went from 3 months down to 27 minutes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, but the caveat there is that there was a lot of on-prem stuff that needed to be done.
Right.
On the customer side. So we've taken all of that, we've put that into the VPC, the virtual private cloud, and now that is a 27-minute process from the time that the CFT gets kicked off to the time that you can actually log in and manipulate the environment.
So that's the value of ops folks learning how to code. They're not doing anything differently than they did from an infrastructure perspective before, other than software defining what they need to do.
Yep.
Now, from a development perspective, give me an example of where developers benefit from learning infrastructure and applying their development skill to the other way around. That's the part that, like, conceptually, I get cross training is a great idea. It's good it's always just good for developers to know infrastructure's job so that they make infrastructure's job easier and they build better applications. But give me put some meat on the bone for me. Like, how is that practically a good thing?
I'm glad you asked that, Keith. To put my little developer hat on. So this is very stereotypical, and this is very broad strokes, but I've seen it happen time and time again, so it's legit. When a developer writes code for a thing, they very rarely take into consideration, okay, this is how this is going to affect the infrastructure. In a normal on-premises environment, that's not a big deal,
right?
Most of the time, unless you go from, like, you know, if you got like a tiny pipe and you're trying to just jam a whole bunch of data through it, then it starts to hurt, and you try. I mean, you know, bus contention issues and stuff like that. That happens a lot, but you don't notice it when it's on premises. Notice I said premises. In an AWS environment, that is hideously expensive. There's one example on from 2017 where a customer who miswrote a Lambda function had a $25 million per month bill.
Oh my goodness. By
going in and refactoring it, talking with their infrastructure guys, fixing the amount of data being sent per packet via the application, they went from 25 million down to like 13 million or something like that. It was a huge cost savings, and it was based upon the developer understanding how infrastructure worked.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that I've heard time and again in my experience, is that once you give what seems like infinite resources to developers,
right,
they will use those infinite resources because they have no regard for the back end.
Right.
You know, other problems I've seen is where, you know, especially in like Lambda, they would create Lambda functions that can scale to, you know, millions of operations per minute or thousands per second, whatever the rate is, and they overwhelm the back-end database.
Right. Yep.
So they, you know, it's one of those things.
And they
that
scale the back-end database, and they scale the front end, and they scale the back end, and everything goes out crazy.
So it's one of those things you really, not even from a not just from a technology perspective, but from a business process perspective,
yep,
you need to understand where there's value, and maybe it's value in scaling up that back end, or maybe it's smarter to shrink the front end and cap it in. If it doesn't generate more revenue or more opportunity for revenue, why increase the performance unnecessarily? Which is not a challenge we're normally faced with on premises. We're not usually, you know, no one normally tells us we're going too fast.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're seeing a lot of now is we're getting into the business use case requirements conversations far earlier now. And capturing the requirements. What we like to do is we like to have like a one-day on-site where we have everybody in the room. We have the business guys in the room. We have the technology guys in the room. We have the CTO in the room if possible, and we advise. See what I did there? No. And we hash it all out, right, with everybody in the room. Okay, what are your requirements? What does this need to do, and how expensive can it be? And is that even a factor? And by having the cost perspective not just be, okay, server X costs this much, but also the pipes in and the pipes out and the conversations that thing is having and who it's having with, and, you know, how much money is it making versus how much money is it burning, the developer has to be very cognizant of what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be writing it, and making sure that they don't blow it up and just, you know, consume all the resources.
All right. So if people wanted to know more about Greenpages,
yep, how
do they find you guys?
We have a Twitter handle, Greenpages IT. We have the website, greenpages.com. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm at mistwire.com, or they're just, yeah, MISTWIRE.
And you blog at?
And I blog at mistwire.com. And, you know, there's so many things, so many social media aspects. You know, the AWS Portsmouth user group. If you're in the New England area, we also have the meetups, and then we also have VTUG. Yeah, there's
a lot in there. Obviously, vBrownBag, which we've talked about on the program before, so yep, you can visit vBrownBag and learn how to code. The Python series is coming up. I even have some content out there on vBrownBag. Until the next CTO dose, we'll catch you on the Twitters. You can catch me at CTO Advisor, and thectoadvisor.com is where you can find the videos and other great content. Talk to you next CTO dose.